It's been a long time since The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out. Several months at the time of this recording. So making a video about how good it is probably hack now. You know it's good. I know it's good. It's not interesting to like Tears of the Kingdom. It's like when someone's drinking a glass of water and they say, is there anything better than a glass of water? I guess not. It's just agreeable. So maybe I should make this video 3 to 5 years from now. And by that point in internet culture, we will have completely pivoted from a stone cold masterpiece to, it was actually never good, and circle all the way back around to, Tears of the Kingdom is a masterpiece, and I'm tired of people pretending it's not. But to pitch to you right now a video on how much I like Zelda sucks. What am I adding to the discussion? I can't just tell you it's good. Why are you watching? Buddy, look around you. Titties out. I mean, I was gonna let the dogs out, and then I thought, like, both? For free? What are you, crazy? Like, no, you gotta sub to the page for that. Come on, man. Look at me. This is gonna be the worst take on the internet you've ever heard. The video of that cat meowing into the ring cam has more tangible value than anything I could ever say to you. That being said, I want this to be that cookie you find underneath the couch, one you might consider scarfing and or crushing. More importantly, I need to talk about it. Tears of the Kingdom was a monumental part of my year, so I'd like to show you a song I wrote for my passion and in love for this game. And in order to do that, I'm gonna pull out a little friend of mine. No, I'm not doing that. It's this one. As of recording, I've finished 100 shrines, activated 34 light roots, gathered 121 Korok seeds, and accidentally killed 1 fox's bastard, all throughout my time of 120 hours. 120 hours. That's almost a week of in-game time doing little jigs in Hyrule. 3 months to finish it. Several months. It's at least been on my mind every day since it came out. 120 hours is not the longest amount of time for a game of this scale, but it is long enough for me to show my ass on the internet. But you know what? I watched some trailers from release, and there are some clips I see where I'm like, Shields can do what now? And I'm not a huge 100% completionist. I don't think Tears of the Kingdom nor Breath of the Wild were meant to be 100%ed, but I still found it hard to cut the cord when the time came, especially when you remember, well, this town still needs help. I marked that shrine over there. Hey, here's this silly little guy over here. I love silly little guys. And when I find them, I want them to lead me to a dumb little treat. There's always something that pushes back that final fight. Breath of the Wild came out March 2017. I was still a teenager about to graduate high school. My buddy decided to just buy it for Wii U. Switches were kind of hard to come across at this time. I also had a Wii U, but wanted to experience the big new game on the big new system. So I grabbed a pre-owned copy on CEMU emulator. Legally. It took what people love about Zelda, the characters, the silly fantasy, blah blah whatever, and brought it into the modern era. At least some of it, kinda. You know, Link is still here. He's walking around. It actually changed a lot of what people love about Zelda. Breath of the Wild walked into class one day, 7th grade. Miss Me jeans ripped, and it somehow kissed the captain of the football team. Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer Place, and they do the little freeze frame thing. Breath of the Wild is smiling. Scene. And the story was, it was about as good as the cover art for Justin Bieber and Sean Kingston's smash duet, Eeny Meeny. She's indecisive. She can't decide. Just a masterpiece, really. It allowed you to play by pure instinct and interest, something you could only do just as well as the first game in the series back in 1986, a game frequently used for reference during Breath of the Wild's development. At least so much so that a prototype build of Breath of the Wild was documented to have a 2D Zelda 1-like layout to test physics and concepts. Up to this point, before Breath of the Wild's release in 2017, this series had already changed a lot along the way. So, in a way, this series was, I guess, technically going back to its roots, but still changing these now established conventions it had picked up over the past 2 or so decades. With potentially catastrophic stakes, such as multi-billion-dollar company might miss their sales projection this quarter, Breath of the Wild ended up being one of those landmark achievements in video games where you just assign the year to it. Halo 2, 2004, Grand Theft Auto 5, 2013, Cyberpunk 2077, somehow 2020, well, I guess hindsight is 2077, and Breath of the Wild just was 2017. I put around 200 hours into my first run quickly. See, this was the tail end of my mooching youngster years where I could still play for hours on end, partake in a 12-pack of Yoo-Hoos, sustenance style, get 4 hours of sleep, just not do a damn thing except increase gamer score, teenager responsibilities. It just was a simpler time. My buddy and I would report back to each other with the things we found, like a post-lunch conference. Dude, did you find the sword that brings your dog back? No. Never found that one. Nothing mattered more than that game. Not only was it new territory for Zelda, it was new territory for open world games. You could go wherever you wanted, and it came at this oddly fitting time where I could go wherever I wanted in real life. Isn't that deep? It was the freedom, it was the physics, it was the choice to go fight the big bad guy almost the second you started the game, just because you felt like it. It recontextualized how people interact with open worlds, and the genre was never the same. Many games after its release started tearing up their own Miss Me Jeans. Despite a story most people don't care about, Breath of the Wild left its mark as one of the most important games of the 2010s. It has been 6 years since then. I've moved out of my parents' house. I am behind on bills. I have my own house now. Well, it's not my house so much as it's my landlord's house. Turns out one's not enough. How will he survive? Sorry. But you know, a car, insurance, utilities, rent, purchasing things you forgot cost actual money. Like sometimes you gotta buy shit for your car that isn't gas. What's going on with that? At this stage of my life, I, like many of us, were kind of just not prepared for any immediate financial emergency. A sudden $100 expense can feel catastrophic, even if it really isn't. So many of us work and take care of ourselves as much as we have to go do what we really want to do, and hopefully aren't too tired to want to do it. So I'm not just playing Tears of the Kingdom. I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom, and the dishes gotta get done. Gotta mop the floors, because stink-ass over here likes to stand in the dirty cast iron and then just walk around. Why does he do that? He eats his own ass. I'm constantly going back and forth from acting a stink in Hyrule to doing my chores, taking care of the house, taking care of my pets, taking care of sweet baby girl. It's part of the deal. It's not possible to live in Hyrule like I did 6 years ago. There's not enough time. I can't just be Link. I am also a 25-year-old dick out man with things to take care of. Video games at this large of a scale, you sometimes think, who has time to do all that? And you try to take an expedited Disney ride to see all the things and not miss out on what you paid for. And then the time you do play just feels like a chore rather than a hobby. This is not how big open world video games are meant to be consumed. It's not how they're designed. They're not concerned with if you feel like it today, and they shouldn't. But we don't always have the time to get lost like we used to. It's a video game, not in Aaron's list. This is a big game I've scratched at the surface of, little by little, day by day. Like when Big Z shaves the wood in Surf's Up. You know, remember that? Fucking like, if you remember. People like familiar things. We don't like change, especially when something resembles what it used to be. So try to wipe everything you know about Breath of the Wild. Not everything, but where you think everything is. When I first started playing Tears of the Kingdom, I remember thinking, after I do this, I'm gonna go see that guy. It's not there anymore. Nothing you know is there anymore. Aside from, actually most all of it. Having Tears of the Kingdom look and feel so similar to Breath of the Wild, I went into it with a lot of pre-established habits and goals in mind. I started playing the game a lot like I played Breath of the Wild 6 years ago. But I think this is a mistake. Kingdom's intro area, the Great Sky Island, while having a near-identical design ethos, takes Breath of the Wild's Great Plateau, hits it with a Stone Cold Stunner, crushes like 4 natty lights at the same time, tripping on stage, talking mad shit.
4 beers! Oh no! 5 beers! Oh no! 6 beers!
And if we're being real, it was always going to. The formula has only been built on and off itself. But that doesn't mean it didn't surprise me. For example, I was very surprised remembering how far you could paraglide, how high your stamina could be, how good your weapons could be in 2017. I think this tutorial island is incredible, isolated from Breath of the Wild. The main and off paths look enticing. The rivers and ponds of water, as opposed to not water, I don't know. The verticality of terrain, the guiding walls, all meticulously placed, built in such a way you must engage with and entertain the game's physics. So meticulous, it seems to almost preferred being played in a particular rhythm. Like, you can kind of miss some tutorial, or at least some cool set pieces, by going against the grain. The intro Sky Island has more order than it probably deserves, but it also happens to rule. It's designed so well, I only noticed after the fact how much its arrangement was subliminally guiding me to play into its hand. I thought I was creative. I was turning in a baking soda volcano 3 days late in a science fair where there was always that one kid that's like, that's cool. Anyway, I've created a black hole. I spent a long time finishing up the island's quest contents because I wanted to. I stroll and I stink around. I live to get to the bottom of it all, to solve life's moral conundrums. I spent several more hours here just goofing off in a way I did not with the predecessor's tutorial. But if you remember that Hyrule from 2017 pretty well, there's definitely a feeling of, like, man, I could be so decked out right now, and the game doesn't want me to be yet. Tears of the Kingdom often finds itself walking this tightrope of trying to not make new players feel left out of an adventure from 6 years ago, but also kind of being a sequel, I guess. But I also understand the design pillar for these Sky Islands, or rather, this game, was not to establish another dependent relationship with these secondary mechanics. To focus on the abilities, the building. I said, Al Numa Nintendo, give me all my dope shit from the last game. He says, no, son. He calls me son. And I sat my white ass down and listened. Let's take a look at the controls and UI you'll be using to explore these very mechanics. It's fine, not incredible. Menus are still annoying to navigate. You're constantly scrolling no matter what you want to do. You can't quickly eat anything without messing up the flow of combat. I'm messing up inputs I want to do during the final boss of the game, and I make no mistakes. If you're still trying to remember controls by the end of the game, maybe that's not the best sign, especially when it's generally similar to the controls from Breath of the Wild. Weapon swap, shield swap, bow swap, fuse, ultra hand, ascend, recall, auto build. It's a lot to remember. And it's not only the controls you have to keep in mind, it's also working within the confines of these physics. Early on in the game, I was trying to figure out how to place fans on my Zonai wing. And without explicitly telling you how to build your plane, let's just go ahead and say less is more, folks. I love some good old-fashioned trial and error, but sometimes things don't glue together the way you want them to all the time and mess that up a few times in a row. It goes from
Build a helicopter
to in about 4 seconds. The abilities you gather and build upon in those first few hours are the building blocks you will use for the rest of the game in shrines, side quests, just getting around really. Something else I'll touch on real quick is Tears of the Kingdom, much like Breath of the Wild, has opted for this general UI and menu system that lacks any and all fantasy personality. Every tab looks the same to a confusing degree sometimes. Even stylistically, something about picking your save file on Twilight Princess feels like a really big deal. Kind of a nothing problem, I just want Zelda to tap into that more, instead of trying to do the simplistic iPhone thing. Like, I wish they get back to putting the big-ass Wii remote on screen at all times. The curated and tender layering of the Great Sky Island is abandoned upon landing on the surface. The moment-to-moment gameplay shifts, the color, the foliage, the enemies all change, and you are pushed out of the nest into a world that caters to you a lot less now. A world that has actually opened up and is so much bigger than the pretty big one you were just on. But at its core, this is still the Hyrule from 2017. Having a baseline familiarity with Breath of the Wild, I didn't want to immediately scramble for fast travel towers like I usually would in open world games. I kept this map pretty barren for a long time, only using my warrior-like senses, utilizing this sniper scope attachment, my frickin' lamps, spotting baddies from afar, sucking off my frickin' fingers like a little too long, sticking them in the air and saying some smart shit like East. You are confronted with a lot of things at once. Options, objectives, landmarks. So you figure, what's the first thing I see? You know, wait, what's that over there? Guess I'll just go. What am I making fun of? Gotta make fun of the thoughts, that way they aren't real. When I play open world games, I avoid the main quest points intentionally, go the other way most of the time. Tears of the Kingdom's gameplay markets this decision as just as acceptable as playing the main campaign linearly. But it sometimes butts heads with the actual flow of the game. I got the paraglider a lot later than I probably should have. Some basic tutorial shrines are in areas you can't assume every player is going to hit before everything else. And I remembered most of my moves from 2017, so it didn't really matter, but I might be frustrated if I were a new player 40 hours in and I discover that the bows and the arrows were it's like a combo deal. Sprinkled across Hyrule are these small-scale objectives you'll run into from time to time. A Korok who's got a backpack too heavy to carry, and he's got a friend like a block away. It's like a mile for them, though, I guess. Far away enough to light a smoke signal, pending your willingness to help. There's also this guy, Addison, who he's one of those guys that works like 80 hours a week and makes sure everyone knows about it. So, natural born hustler, he needs help hoisting up business signs and sharing those humble brag work memes on Facebook. Like, you know, those guys you went to high school with and they're always reposting something that's like, when their weld comes out looking like this. It's like the dad from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and he's like furrowing his brow. When you ask them to aim that flashlight underneath the hood, but then you remember they drive a Ford. Like, what? It's a twink fox getting dommed. These are recurring, if not regular, predicaments in Tears of the Kingdom. The first time I saw each of these, I thought, this is a really neat idea. The second time I saw each of these, I thought, okay, we're going to keep doing this all game. It's an easy copy-paste objective. The point doesn't really matter. It's the physics puzzle workaround underneath. You can tackle these a different way each time because you have the tools to experiment. But this is where Tears of the Kingdom shows its first signs of having a tough time balancing drive for creativity to reward. Yeah, you can create a funny little gizmo for this little guy to change it up from last time, and I certainly did, but to transport the same guy to the same beacon in a different area many a time. Listen, I don't have time to transport you via Megazord. Okay, Megazords are exclusively for vibes and giggles, not justice. I'll do the simplest, quickest, least hassle thing to get this little guy done with. The amount of range is great if you have the time, and I had a genuine care to get this guy back home, but even going the quickest route, the game wants you to build the same shit you've built already to get into or out of a situation. So, building your ninth fucking Garfield coffee table is not as hype. I'm sorry. The crafting and physics of Tears of the Kingdom flourish best with no urgency or objective. That's why we get clips of people doing stuff like this. When it comes to creativity and building in games, I've always needed a bit of help. I don't push the envelope. I watch others and I steal from them. With Valheim, I needed my buddy to build my shed. In Minecraft, I've only ever built square houses. In The Sims, I'm about as interesting as a door on the side of the house. Tears of the Kingdom's mission hones in on the innate, primal human desire to do dumb shit all the time, to see what you can get away with. I love this. Kingdom itself, though, hardly incentivizes such creativity beyond your own morbid curiosity. Even value placement in Tears of the Kingdom is a consistent problem. Going through a 20-minute cave that looks like the last one with hardly any identifiable landmarks, aside from a destructible pocket of rock that goes on for 50 feet you have to manually destroy to progress, all to find a chest that grants you your 27th piece of amber, is not quite the payoff I was expecting. Your 27th piece of amber is not a dumb little treat. The time spent over value of objective ratio gets greater the longer you play, as you'll already have a large amount of whatever these dungeons are willing to reward you. If you're expecting that grand chest at the end, Tears of the Kingdom rarely delivers. You can also just not do them. But this conflicts with my need to complete small tasks when I see them. Dumb little treat, dog catching tennis ball. In any open world game, any game, you want to be the kleptomaniac. You see two paths, you go down one, but maybe don't go down too far. Let's turn around and see what the other one had going on. Oh my god, they converged the whole time. You want to grab and do every little thing you see, and when you skip it, you feel stupid. Even if you know the reward is not worth it. Kingdom is a game that allows you to do the bare minimum to get by and doesn't really reward you for playing chess instead of checkers. It's personal fulfillment. And you could say, isn't that enough? This is a subjective critique placed on Tears of the Kingdom's rewards. Should the experience of a dungeon, or a game for that matter, be dictated by the expectation of physical reward? Because experimenting in Tears of the Kingdom is the reward. Contraptions that serve a fundamental purpose for your travels are great, but what I love about this game is what I like to call making some Lego Seinfeld. Wildly unnecessary, not the first thing you'd think of, but who's to stop you? Why not?
My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio.
Sit down and make some Lego Seinfeld. Do not buy the Kramer at the Laugh Factory Lego set. Mistake, might I say. Bad News Bears. Don't buy that one. A universal experience I see with this game is everyone beating a puzzle in a way it was probably not designed to be beaten. These freedoms were exhausted in talking points about Breath of the Wild's gameplay in 2017, but Tears of the Kingdom was designed with sick-ass clips in mind. Breath of the Wild is when Neo escapes the Matrix, but Tears of the Kingdom is when he sees it all in code. Breath of the Wild, you're climbing trees. Tears of the Kingdom, shooting threes. I am so proud to announce that Tears of the Kingdom joins the ranks of games that make you think you're the only one on the planet who could have possibly done the puzzle like that. It's like knowing the reference in Rick and Morty so you think the joke is funnier than it actually is. Zelda's goal in puzzle design is to make you feel smart. Like they needed to bring in their best guy. That's you. It's just delusional intellect. I love that shit. Feed my ego. And this goes for even like the 4-year-old brain busters. Like, fuck it. Put the triangle in the triangle hole. Just that Fisher Price baby's first blocks type shit. Like, delicious.
Are you kidding me? That's right. Who do you think you are? I am.
Tears of the Kingdom's text puzzles are also just incredible. A boat rows the seas. Its oars row with ease. Take your torch into the cave, and you will see. There's a statue of a frog.
What do they mean by this?
And there are areas where you are not tested. Puzzles are everywhere, but everywhere is not a I wrote that? You're always focused on the next thing, the next whatever, but you'll lose yourself if you're always looking for the tent. To always keep your analytical puzzle-solving glasses on for a genuinely uncomplicated forest to search for an answer that isn't there makes you confront what you're even looking for. Kingdom refuses to constantly test you via the puzzle over there, the puzzle over here. It tests itself. What about in the open field, in a place where there is no triangle hole to be found? What if it is just a tree? Kingdom is a playground that conditions you to at least always be curious, even for the mundane, because it also deserves it. In looking for that chest and the answer, you become familiar with the very nature you're trying so hard to pick apart. He's so Zen monk. I know. There's nothing I can do to stop it. I'm actually a big fan of talking philosophically about shit that was probably written in a book by somebody much smarter than me 150 years ago. Kingdom, whose unapologetically dry low points, juxtaposed with its grand cinematic high points, were not the easiest thing to appreciate in tandem initially. It all started thinking, okay, this is the greatest thing I've ever played. Slowly wanes to, okay, well, that part's kind of annoying. And then over time, I cared about its flaws like I would have loved one. Zelda's strongest draw, narratively, has always been its characters, not the story. But you gotta throw in some things so we can see these little guys running around trying to fix it. Good characters make good stories. This is a formula Nintendo uses regularly for their franchises. The idea where you save the princess, on paper, is not that interesting at its core. But it is tried and true. So if they can get you to care about this guy, they can get you to save the princess. Matter of fact, the technical director of Tears of the Kingdom, Takuhiro Dota, said in an Ask a Developer interview for the game that reusing 2017's Hyrule was a specific goal of his, inspired by Shigeru Miyamoto's determination to turn Woohoo Island from Wii into its own character. A level that changed over time and wasn't just a physical location. In case anybody needs to know, I don't usually play English dubs of Japanese entertainment. Breath of the Wild was the first game to feature serious voice acting, so at the time, hey, I'll give it a shot. But if my negative feelings on that game's voice acting are any indication, I figured the best first impression would be to play it how it was initially written, not interpreted or translated, full-on Nihongo. Is that it? Full-on Nihongo. I wanted to like this story and give it the best case scenario. So with that, Tears of the Kingdom starts off like it knows it's the sequel to one of the most important games of the 2010s. Low light, torches, one of those you walk very slowly type intros. It sets a dark and mature tone early on. Link loses an arm. Whoa, it's like Kiki's delivery. There's clearly an attempt to create a high-budge chronicle here. We love a good chronicle. But after the game opens up beyond its prologue and Great Sky Island segment, it loses a lot of that character in Steam. I suppose to allow you to tell it at your own pace, but the moments it does choose to weave back into the ultimate fate of its story never grabbed me. I am not passionate about this story at all. Relaying its plot beats to you sounds like a waste of time. Anybody could tell you what happens, but making this long of a review on a Zelda game and not talking about it feels irresponsible. How can you review the pie when you don't describe the bum-ass crust? So I'll try to riff something out here. A development team is so much more than the main guy that just shows up everywhere. But saying Eiji Aonuma is just the guy that made Tears of the Kingdom is funny. So Aonuma Zelda missed an opportunity to effectively utilize the narrative potential of the champions from Breath of the Wild. This has been talked about for years. But real quick, as a recap, there is little to no active narrative in the present tense for Breath of the Wild's champions. These big characters are dead. Everything that has happened in Breath of the Wild happened before you got to play it. So you watch these cutscenes to build a second-hand relationship with these characters after the fact. Exposition bad. Yes. With Kingdom, we have these sages in place of those champions. And it's like the champions with a slight redesign. They're like the Square Enix Marvel's Avengers of the original champions. When those guys were just like okay in 2017. Let's take a look at these sages. They are a retread of the last game. The races of these characters have been in many a Zelda game, so why complain about the main ones here? Goron, Zora, Gerudo, Rito. I like when the gang is here. Their designs are cool. Visually, they add variety to the world building. It rules. Tears of the Kingdom is fairly populated by groups of creatures that really make you feel like Batman. There is an attempt at more active first-hand narrative in the present with Tears of the Kingdom involving its sages, but they're so inessential that even their biggest moments of dialogue in the game, via cutscene, they just be slotted in and out, like with the other ones in the group. The sages are not narratively unique enough, nor visually unique enough to justify making an entirely new gang. I don't think I'd be surprised if someone could just not distinguish which sage or champion was a part of which game. They are only technically different. Resolving the conflicts of the main villages and helping locally is where you see some of your impact on this world. We love resolving plights. Sandstorms clear in the Gerudo Desert, water supply clean in the Zora's domain. It's mostly good. But the fate of the world is not Tears of the Kingdom's strong suit in storytelling. It's the small world problems, solving mysteries for the local paper, getting a band back together. This is where these characters breathe. These are the stories I care about. I don't know, I can only hear so many fate of the world type stories before none of them matter anymore. Like, what makes this one different? You spend a lot of time in the main story hearing about this imprisoning war, something that happened some time ago. This is deja vu. We already did this. Why has this stuff already happened before we got to play it? Breath of the Wild already made this mistake. But it did, sell a lot of copies. Maybe it wasn't a mistake. But this video is not about Breath of the Wild. And it's not about comparing the two. So, strict Kingdom speak from this point forward. This game does this, but this game does... I'm done. I'm trying to quit. Let's talk art direction. According to the team, Tears of the Kingdom needed the Zelda magic, so the Zonai tech is the best bridge for this gap. It's kinda weird, but uses recognizable objects in-game to communicate their uses. I know what that is. That's a Lasco fan from Walmart. And that's clearly a flamethrower. The green glue is silly, fun, and easy to understand. The entire Zonai concept has what seems to be this Mesoamerican vibe. Like, I could just tell. Historian, by the way. They took a lot from real world culture, something Zelda has always done, but have mashed it into this huge fantasy mixing bowl of South American history, European, Asian, and of course some other shit I'm not smart enough to understand. Let's take a look at archaic armor Link. This makes me feel good. This that sword and sandals type shit. This that gladiator type shit. This is Sparta! The Blessing Shrine is a nothing room. It only has a chest, and there's a lot of them. But every time I come in here, I mean, come on, dude. The look of this room is a blessing. There's a lot of just unexplainable fantasy here, which I love. Stones shifting, statues talking, because we said so type fantasy rules. Don't make anything make sense. Feed me lies. I don't care. They did a great job of giving Kingdom its own artistic identity within the same base style. It's no secret that Kingdom is pushing its hardware to the absolute limit. The world map sandwiches its 3 layers of the sky, the surface, and the depths together in a way that sneakily hides away the processes it actually has to do in order to make this game run. Paragliding at certain heights, the fog and cloud systems kick in. The focus on lighting was probably out of necessity. The focal point in overlooking any horizon is the horizon itself. From many angles, it looks like Hyrule could keep going forever. Tears of the Kingdom's greatest visual achievement is its nature, its horizon. I don't know if I've ever appreciated the sun in a video game like I have with Tears of the Kingdom. Its mountains in the distance, its range, its scope and depth. I've only ever lived and traveled within the southeastern quadrant of the United States since I was born. As west as Texas and as north as North Carolina and Tennessee. Clingman's Dome, the highest mountain peak of the Great Smoky Mountains, the highest of the Appalachian Trail, and the high point of Tennessee, immediately borders North Carolina, one of the highest points in eastern North America. So in order to gain a fuller perspective in the world that I have lived in for so long, I traveled to Tennessee, to Clingman's Dome, on a trip I was already going on. But I could tie it into this video like it was a big thing. It is. Upon reaching the parking area for Clingman's Dome, you could just hike up the standard concrete affair. Observation tower right up and around the bend. A half-mile trek. But we simply could not do that. I say, listen up, boys. The Darrien Dane Tears of the Kingdom video will not be complete unless we do everything my way. Now, we just saw a bypass trail that was a bit more naturey and felt like an actual hike. The bypass weaves in and out between North Carolina and Tennessee. It added an extra mile or so to our travels. Okay, nothing crazy. You just want the survival vibes of starvation, not actual starvation. But even if it were a realistically dangerous trek, I would have no problem swatting a bird out of the sky with my open palm technique. This bird's got off easy. I just wasn't hungry. I've gathered a lot of nature footage just for this video, and that work alone has made me so much more aware of all the plants around me, even the ones in my own yard that I never noticed before.
Boom. And then I got it.
Darrien, now walk back by it and just keep going. Like you don't even see it.
Oh, yeah, perfect. I come in right at this angle.
You want me to do what?
Act like I don't see the camera?
You just walk towards me.
I'm so mysterious. The bypass trail eventually converges toward the main visitor path, the casual path. You still thought I was gonna go to the cash path with my open palm? Extra mile, by the way? So Mother Nature tells me, baby girl, you've arrived. I say, yes, ma'am. We finally reach the observation tower, the very physical, an overwhelming presence of distance, height. Being in the actual clouds made me feel like Link. I thought maybe I'll take out my own paraglider and jump. Being on top of a mountain, seeing mountains on the horizon, reminded me how much I need to get out more. Like, you're telling me those are real? I can see it now. Like, there's gonna be so many hack repeat comments that are like,
A bro touched grass. Man went outside for once. Bro logged off.
like, I know. This video is a recipe for just getting dunked on in the comments. Or actually, maybe just a comment that says like, dude, this vid is kinda gay. As a talking point, criticism toward open world games being big for the sake of it, wide as an ocean and deep, like, it's pretty well tread waters on the internet at this point. Like I agree, it's been said enough times now. It's not interesting to trash open world games and be like, checkmate. So I'll try to give you something useful here. Is Tears of the Kingdom an exception to this common open world game blunder? Well, traversal is integral to an open world game's design. The bigger the world, the better the traversal should be. They go together like, they're like twins who act like they have their own language. Then they kind of do. Is it practical, but also fun? Renee was the first horse I found, the one I started with. She rode with me until I found the bigger one. I named him Guy Man. After finding your first horse or two, there's not really a reason to keep grabbing them unless you want a wild one temporarily, or if you want to collect some of the cool ones, but after a while, I just didn't need a horse as much. I explored the horseable terrain. Is this particular mode of transportation integral to navigating the game? Not really. There are many alternatives to the horse. There are a lot of ways to get around. If anything, the horse just fulfills that fantasy role-playing itch, but you don't need it. So I want to factor in how essential it is before I knock it too much. After logging the Skyview towers on the map, establishing a few fast travel points, and getting a better idea of where I was going back to, it required a lot of flying. I personally needed the paraglider quite a bit. You're going to be gliding a lot, probably. This traversal is harder to go without. And if that is the case, and it is more unavoidable, I wish I had a bit more expression in the use of this mechanic than just the fabric that's attached. For a world this size, I'd love more active engagement in that unavoidable traversal. Think of games like Jet Set, Tony Hawk, or Marvel Spider-Man. Games with not only good traversal, but good repeated traversal. To be fair, most of these games are specifically designed with movement in mind, so I will digress my ass off for the time being. I don't want to knock Tears of the Kingdom too much for not feeling like Doom during every mode of transportation. It's great to have a world worth exploring, but can you have a world worth retreading as well? Maybe the amount of attention required to do sick flips mid-paraglide would take your focus off of those focal landmarks and objectives on the horizon, but even places I know I'm going, places I've been before, I'm just holding forward for a while. Like, I've been here a few times. I know the trip.
I have to be entertained at all times.
I've kind of danced around one of Tears of the Kingdom's biggest freedoms, the Zonai contraptions. With these in mind, traversal is one of Kingdom's biggest improvements. You can build a plane, build a car, you can build a bear. The game wants you to build whatever. It'll just disintegrate after however long the game feels you deserve to have it. You can ascend out of the ceilings and caves. The design of this game encourages silly behavior, so to make this decision is kinda weird. Maybe its limits are put in place to protect the player from breaking this world in ways I can't realize. They're predicting a tomfoolery of the Prometheus flavor on my part. And they know if I had the chance to pull the curtain back on horrors not previously realized and steal that flame, I would. And there I'd be, lying there, liver open, ready for the taking by a bastard eagle. Open world has been the most overblown, oversold, and over-discussed genre in the industry for over 10 years now. Got to go to the tower, fill out the map, establish your FTPs, or take care of the prerequisites before you go do some actual shit. Most all open world games have you doing at least one of these things. Let's take a look at Skyrim. I got an okay example here. The first time you played it, you probably saw 2 pathways on a road and you thought, which way am I gonna go? Whoa, look at the clutter design in this shack you found. This is where these games kick ass. World building, ambiance, a world worth discovering. But now, what do you do when you've gone to a few cities and towns? I mean, there's probably no need to go down that same road again, unless you just love the sprint button. So you fast travel. What do you do when you replay it? Go to Whiterun Stables, buy a trip to all the major locations, and establish a fast travel point. At least I do this. Maybe it's a me thing, but this isn't a uniquely Skyrim thing. After all, I'd say most open world games are more fun at being discovered and explored rather than being regularly traversed. There's a reason fast travel was put there in the first place. I mean, this was an era of the industry where shit was groundbreaking because it's just bigger now. Like, maybe we've always had that, but as a culture, we wanted to see some BA dubs. Some big-ass worlds. This was a trend we are finally starting to maybe not prioritize as much. And this isn't to say a game like Skyrim was only good or popular because it's big, because I love this game. The particular point I'm trying to make is, I've come to the conclusion that if fast travel is a regular choice of yours, your game world might be TDB, too damn big. As a designer, it probably smarts to have to layer every single plot of open world space with fresh, original content. Kingdom's game world mostly does a great job with the size it's given. It's like 3 very big pieces of bread stacked on top of each other, but they're seasoned and toasted. It might be good to mention that fresh and original content, the important landmarks of Kingdom's world. Sprinkled on top of this seasoned and toasted bread sandy of a kingdom are the other Sky Islands, aside from the tutorial. Bite-sized and always cutting to the chase, they are about shrines. The shrines as an idea are so short, they'd be hard to mess up. They're spread out evenly, you're in and out, they're barely a commitment, and they're the best tally of Link's progression throughout the game. Some are easier than others, but they aim to exercise your knowledge of the abilities in physics. The dungeons, or temples, are the biome-focused bookends of a region's local matter at hand. You do small tasks in that region's village to eventually build up to working with their respective sage in training. Let's cut out all that reading the wiki part of this segment. It's boring. It's a waste of time. I'm either telling jokes or crying on camera. Okay, so let's assume you've already reached the temples. They have floors like a lot of Zelda games, but they're not self-contained. In older games, the progression is linear and segmented. You go to this room and this one. Hey, maybe it branches off, but the way forward is guided. This is where we start to see cracks in the open-ended freeform game design Kingdom desperately wants to have. It's trying to set up a sequence of puzzles for you to solve, only to still be too limitless as a game for that to even work. It's too dope. I've no other way to put it. My first experience was with the Fire Temple, where the presentation from the outside blew me away. I'm in for a delicious little treat. As a set piece, these are really cool. Now, to keep those floors, if I have a few stamina upgrades or potions, I have no reason to entertain this unique minecart travel mechanic they've created. Why not just climb up and fly around like I've been doing everywhere else in the game? I can fly right over there. Like, I can see where the tracks lead. This is almost a hypocritical problem to have. Why give credit to a game for its open-endedness and freedom to solve puzzles the way you want to, and then say it's kinda annoying in an actually avoidable scenario? I believe the idea of a temple is to evoke those feelings of, this is a rare situation, you don't have as much control as you think, you're out of your element. The presence and weight of a temple is lost once you actually dig into its contents. You're not nervous for what awaits, you're looking for the next gong to hit, the next wind turbine to blow again. Like the sages, that's all they do. When I said they can be slotted in and out of cutscenes, they can be slotted in and out of gameplay too. Just use the ability they have on an obvious thing of interest a few times, then all the doors unlock. And I don't have an answer for this. I'm a pro gamer, okay? I'm for finding problems, not solving them, okay? I'll talk my talk for, an hour and a half. AGL Numa could smell the clown on me in 45 seconds. Not 40, I'm too quick. Maybe if it were like the shrines where they take your things away and you slowly rebuild, but with the time commitment of a temple, that'd be tight. I don't know. It's like Kingdom wants to be so incredibly freeform, it downright refuses order and structure, even for areas that could use it. You can cheat and blow through a dungeon's obstacles, but not in a good way. When you skip the 2-minute shrines ideas, that's Fedora smirk, that rules. When you skip through the dungeon's ideas, I just feel bad. You could just resist the urge. Just do as you're told. But you see a pie sitting on that windowsill. What are you going to be, a good boy? I'm floating my fucking ass over there, idiot. The way to the dungeon is part of the dungeon in Zelda games. Think Dragon Roost Island in Wind Waker or the Snow Peak Ruins in Twilight Princess. New York slice, just delicious. In those games, you find the exclusive gadge and you hone your way through baddies and puzzles. Kingdom gives you everything you need in the first few hours, so their answer for a proprietary dungeon item is a little sage buddy following you around. What could have been a sick-ass grappling hook is instead a character that has an annoying voice when you press A. Now, it's the most egregious inside the temples, but the way to hasn't been lost. The water in the Wind Temple come to mind. Those two just being excellent gauntlets of exercise that strive to execute these ideas seldom seen the rest of the game. For the temples, I enjoyed the road trip more than the destination. The depths are another facet of Hyrule's world that only lives down below. Fucking in the dark. Unclaimed. The depths as an idea are exclusively about the road trip. There is no horizon. You light your own. Tears of the Kingdom, if anything, is about the road trip. And brother, you have control of the ox. So what are you gonna bum everybody out and play Daydreaming by Radiohead, or you gonna put on Eeny Meeny? I beat the game. Archaic armor holding together like some old Calvin Klein's Raimi style. We start with the fit, we end with the fit. That's how I play these games. I don't care about stats or numbers. He should have a cool or nice ass, not an efficient ass. Link's nuts, without question. Stankin'. Gloomed out with one heart left and no other options than to open up a can. Or reload in earlier save. That's cowardly. I couldn't be a humblebrag clutch king if I did. One heart, by the way. I haven't even explained what Gloom does. I don't know. We'll do it live! I'm sure I've made it pretty clear at this point. I just don't care about the narrative of Kingdom, like at all. I'm not passionate about it, you know? How can such a long review justifiably exist when cutting out a substantial portion of its pie? I've decided to not eat that bum-ass crust. Or at least, I have eaten the crust. I choose not to go into exhausting depth on its notes and why I don't like what happens in it. For anybody watching this review that hasn't played the game and you're just looking for a review where the guy maybe shares too much, but you also kind of need to know what's going on in the game. Link loses to the bad guy. The universe is in cosmic disarray. Zelda sacrifices herself, like actually dies. There are actual stakes. That's what I would have said if I weren't lying. Failure to create sustainable, long-term, compelling dialogue for its main characters, repetitive plot beats, a lack of commitment to its own narrative climax. The best characters are the side dudes. I want to play Legend of Pen the Bird, you know? Like, what's that guy up to? I don't care to talk about the materials because it matters so little. It was like slowly growing with the character over the course of a show's run instead of binging it over a weekend. Link has been an extension of myself for a long period of my year now. The resolve of this story matters so little because my story is the investment I've had up to this point. It's not saving the girl. It's my routine ending. It doesn't matter what the ending is. I don't want it to go. I don't like it. And I miss it being a part of my life. Video game critique on the internet is always looking for the next masterpiece, or in some cases seems pretty eager to say something is not a masterpiece. Art in general is thrown through the ringer and back, and it should, but I'm not surprised why people have trouble being in the entertainment industry. It's brutal in a lot of ways. Hundreds of developers passionate about different roles had to coordinate and corral their talents toward a similar goal, and it took years to make that work. Eiji Aonuma's got to be like the Miyazaki of video games, you know, just actual workaholic psycho, hates his son. but maybe there's like a cool picture of him. He's like smoking. He's like looking at a duck. He's eating a piece of bread, and there's a quote underneath, and he's saying something like, "Look at that. Isn't that all you need?" And he's smiling. Kingdom came out a physics masterclass and a solid addition to its mother franchise's place in the fantasy genre. And it's the critical darling and all the awards and things. However, there are plenty of people out there that don't like it, maybe hate it, with justified opinions. I mean, who cares if I think they're justified? How much of a fantasy can it really be if there's someone that says, mid actually, on Twitter? They might be right. But even then, and I say this with more absolute certainty, it's still at least a defining piece of work, good for the medium, good for the culture. But the thing is we here on YouTube, you watching this video, me making this video, we consume a lot of it. Films, books, music, stuff, and fast. Like too fast. Even the latest buggy mess of this year is still a miracle piece of programming compared to where we were, I don't know, 100 years ago. I don't know, dinosaurs were roaming then. Like cut the game designer some slack. It's just neat to look at where we are. The way we can categorically define why Tears of the Kingdom is a masterpiece and why the new Call of Duty campaign isn't is insane to me. Like, when you really think about it, guys, the latest Madden is still ridiculous. Like, just a miracle, you know? Now, is it a miracle for $70? It's a miracle from afar type. like I wouldn't buy it. It's worse than the ones they made 20 years ago. But my point is, we consume a lot. Analyzing something you like and digging into why you like it is good. I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is a flawless game, because of course it isn't. But I know kids don't go into the game industry to make the greatest battle pass of all time. Kids go into the game industry because of Tears of the Kingdom. There is no reason to materialize my thoughts of the day on the internet all the time just because I can. To be in a constant state of worrying about being forgotten for a moment. Nobody needs to hear what I have to say about anything. And if all of this boils down to what, an hour and a half of media consumption, me talking about something somebody else made, it might only be fair to think about it for longer than 3 seconds. It took this long to say this. Everyone's moved on. This game came out over a year ago. But you get lost in life sometimes. It's not just a noble pursuit. Life is a bunch of things. Things take time. Take time. Despite my sincere and genuine critiques on some of Kingdom's design choices, I have struggled with my own opinion of critiques themselves lately. Throughout my time writing this review and editing this video, I've listened to a lot of music that isn't far off from Kingdom's own audio landscape. Masakatsu Takegi's Kagayaki comes to mind. This neoclassical double album filled with nature in field recordings, voices of passing townsfolk, and what I can only describe as almost rustic lullabies. Children playing outside before the cicadas come out. A record that feels like there's an entire village inside. Takagi moved from the colossal city of Kyoto to a small town in the mountains of Hyogo, Japan in the early 2010s in order to, I guess, live a regular fucking life away from all of its modern distractions. When describing a later piece of work in his discography, Takagi said, "I love to think that nature might also listen to my piano. The nature is the melody. The piano is the harmony." Kagayaki well represents the two sides of Tears of the Kingdom's not only literal sound environment, but its reserved yet cinematic gameplay loop. It's ordinary, worldly, it's complete. And sometimes it's a grand piano that contains the entire world inside. There were so many days writing this script where I just wanted to get the fuck out of my job and just get the chance to sit down for a few hours at a coffee shop and just write all of this to Kagayaki. It slowly became a routine, like a return. It felt like prayer. Kagayaki is one of those things that makes you better at creating things. And not even what better at making things that people can watch on YouTube. It makes you a better human being. It's 2.5 hours of humanity I'm not sure I've found elsewhere on recording. Can The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, an entertainment piece of consumer software, somehow also be an escape from life's modern distractions? The gameplay loop, the verticality of terrain, the trial and error of a new Zonai project, Kingdom in every single aspect is defined by highs and lows. For every big boss fight or goon enemy camp encounter, there's the sound of Tears of the Kingdom is incredible. It's kind of the perfect game to throw a podcast on and have a control room of like 6 different things going on at the same time, and I still somehow don't recommend that. Hearing this game in its world for what it is, even in its mundane moments, is more alive than maybe any game I've ever played. If this bird call here is the Reddit question voiced by AI, then Link's footsteps, that's around a Subway Surfers. And the water sounds with the river going up around the bend over there, that's the Minecraft. It's jumping on the blocks. And you play the part of the like button, the perfect audio sandwich.
Guys of Reddit, why did you reject the pretty girl?
You can tell they spent a lot of time, possibly their entire budget, on the women that moan a little too loud when you talk to them. The ambient musical accompaniment allows a world like this to breathe. In the wild, not a song nor sound effect infiltrates long enough to take your attention away from Tears of the Kingdom's actual soundtrack. We are defined by our influences and the influences of others who decide to share them with us. When I was 12 years old, I couldn't go a day without listening to Green Day. I got obsessed about music in a way I'd never felt before after opening the floodgates of punk, or pop punk if you are that guy. A censored version of American Idiot on CD was the first album I ever purchased. I was at Walmart after school with my delinquent stinker friends. The first album I bought with my own money. One of them said, "Dude, you really gonna buy that?" He had already discovered the likes of real music, like 3 Days Grace or Avenged Sevenfold. We do not get to choose the relationship we have with the art that affects us. It just finds us at the time we need it. My own memories and thoughts around this Bush-era, anti-war rock opera are not of its actual lyrical content. Now, that's probably somewhere in me, of course, but primarily they're of what I was doing in my life at the time I was listening to it. Interpreting art wrong is half the part of enjoying things, because no one can tell you what your relationship to a piece of media is. American Idiot was the first album I bought with intent. I heard a lot of their songs from the radio or from looking them up on the internet. They're one of the best-selling groups of all time. It's zeitgeist level shit. So one of the good albums you should listen to was bound to land on the radar. There was only so much you could control on the iHeartRadio app back then before they wanted you to pay for the service. I wanted to listen to them so bad, I even endured the Broadway Idiot recordings, something I was not interested in, just to hear songs again on repeat in a single afternoon. I mean, I could have just gone to YouTube, but I wasn't trying to refresh a page or drag the thing back. I might have also been preoccupied shooting threes outside, making it stank, skull candies on full volley. I was in middle school. I didn't have money for a vinyl collection. I didn't know how to play vinyl, so I looked into CDs. A medium that was already on its way out by the time I started collecting, because people were probably building their digital libraries, eventually playlists. I wanted a material piece of this album, something that belonged to me. That cover showed up a lot when I heard the 3 or 4 songs I liked, so you think, I'll give this a shot, and then you get picked up from Walmart later that night after trying to jump over the trash cans. You ride home looking at the artwork, read the back, and that was where I found you could take it out, the cover booklet. So much stuff in there. You barrel through all the songs you already like, but you can't keep walking over to the CD player every time to restart Boulevard of Broken Dreams. Eventually, you will hear a little bit of Are We the Waiting? And each time I did, I thought, okay, well, that one sounds a little different. Kind of cool, actually. As I'm in Whomp's Fortress in Mario 64, trying to do the owl thing, I decide this time, you just let it play. The deep cuts on the album I initially didn't know nor care about at first, later became the ones I would also listen to on repeat. I tore out the lyric sheets from the cover booklet and slotted them into my sheet music binder in middle school band. So from the result of liking an album, I kept going and amassed a large collection of CDs. And as time went on and I eventually exhausted all I'd heard, I thought, well, what did they listen to? What can I just find? I'd use Amazon all the time to look for very good to like new condition CDs, often sold for 1 cent, $3.99 shipping. Sometimes they cost as much as $3 or $4, but to be able to only pay $4 for any specific CD I wanted, come on, $50, I'm getting over 10 albums in one haul. I did this as often as I could. If I ever got that much money in my possession, would frequent my local Goodwill, yard sales, flea markets, looking to collect more and more. And I found a lot of stuff I still have in my collection today. 6 years later, I would burn that very CD library onto iTunes on my computer. I would play my music for my friends when they came over. Meaning I would just blare it over the game volume on the TV, and they'd be falling over themselves trying to tell me how incredible my music taste is. This is the exact time we were playing Breath of the Wild. 6 years after that, I'm dressed like this. I've only happened upon most of my favorite things ever. Like by accident. I did not consent to the emotional relationship I would eventually have with the tallest man on Earth's shallow grave, because one time I clicked on a random NPR Tiny Desk. These memories have been brought into perspective by a game that probably didn't intend to do that. And now my identity is sourced through these various branches and paths interweaving into whatever I am now as a person. We are all defined by our influences, even if we don't know it. And you can't hide from them. Stephen George, a guy on YouTube who's recorded every day of his life for a vlog channel in order to document this chapter of his life, has kept up a now 15-year project and going. I discovered this channel in 2010. I was a kid. One video, he mentioned he liked the band Modest Mouse. I thought, alright, I'll check whatever that is out. So I ended up discovering this band because of a YouTuber I just really liked, whose primarily video game content seemed pretty removed from any recommendation of the band Modest Mouse. I saw Tenacious D in The Pick of Destiny in 5th grade. I watched it every night to the point my parents were like, yeah man, we meant you could like watch it once. Like, this is not an every night sort of thing. I'm certain that Jacob Geller sitting outside saying some smart shit had a subconscious impact on me today, sitting outside saying some dumb shit. Wile E. Coyote taught me to leave various traps around the house for my girlfriend. This entire channel's look is based on Weezer Blue. Shout out to all my 189 BCC heads. Ever heard of Nakey Jake? Like, look at me. I was also editing this video to the Donkey Kong Country 2 soundtrack, and I've put Forest Interlude at the end of maybe every essay I've made. I relate to Joe Pera getting obsessed with Baba O'Reilly by The Who. This is what I look like when I discover the things. Is there any greater purpose than to love as much as you can? To be affected. We take, we steal, and we craft what we know into this new thing that hopefully wasn't there before. I've stolen everything. Even that line, I've stolen everything. I just stole that. Issue number 94, an April 2020 entry of Nick Cave's Q&A blog series, The Red Hand Files. A fan writes in asking about an artist who had accused one of his songs of plagiarism. Nick consulted his songwriting partner, Warren Ellis, and asked if he stole it. Warren would say, absolutely not. No, I stole it from this other guy. Nick asks Warren, what else have you stolen? I've stolen everything, Warren says. Or at least I thought he did, for almost 4 years now. He actually didn't say that. He said, everything. Absolutely everything. Maybe I just suck at plagiarizing. Or I'm pretty good at it. I've stolen everything. Absolutely everything. Because I am not only everything I like, I am everything I have ever liked. Arthur, Bear in the Big Blue House, Contra in Super Mario Bros. On a knockoff plug-and-play console known as the Power Player Super Joy, the Big Rainbow Parachute from gym class, Frog, and Toad. That one scene from Pagemaster. This is how a heart breaks off the Something to Be album by Rob Thomas on a CD player on repeat for one weekend. Just that song. Dumb and Dumber. Tony Hawk's Underground. Max Keeble's Big Move.
I want my handheld!
What did you say, punk?
I said, I want my handheld.
You want me to hold your hand?
No!
A copy of Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury on Game Boy Advance I stole from my good friend in 1st grade, and then literally moving states away a week later. Madden 2004, School of Rock. Failing every AR test ever. Just behind everybody in class. Tenacious D. Scholastic Book Fairs. iNinja. Simpsons Hit and Run. My mom saying, hey, check this out. And it's the Triumph of a Heart music video by Björk. Small Soldiers. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. The Spider-Man 3 Burger King promo ad. Spider-Man 3. The commercial for Fushigi. Watching seasons 3 and 4 of Seinfeld with my mom on a Sanyo plasma screen with a red and green gunshot wound of dead pixels in the middle right side of the screen. Green Day. That 70s show. Their Eyes Were Watching God. Blue Album by Weezer. Pixies. Chappelle Show on DVD. The New York City 1965 performance of Yesterday in Studio 50 where Paul McCartney is crying. Fiona Apple. Queen. Kendrick Lamar. Everything by Outkast. Superbad. Stop Making Sense by Talking Heads. The NPR Tiny Desk for The Tallest Man on Earth. Greatest Hits by Remo Drive. Courtney Barnett. My Girlfriend. What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. Midsummer. The Boatman's Call by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Rum, Sodomy, and The Lash by The Pogues. Sopranos. Soprano? La La Land. Vegas Pro Not Crashing. Tears of the Kingdom. Just to name a few. Art is more than all that's there, of course. It's what you take from it. It's like when your buddy tells you a funny story and later on you lie and try to tell that story as if it happened to you. Real talk, I don't think I'm being profound here, but I am talking a lot. Bit of a catch-22 there. I say all of this in a, hey, I'm sure you already know this type of way. I also don't want to be the art guy. You know, everything is art. Okay, that coffee mug, boom, think about it. Like, I'm not going to sit here nuts hanging out, a cool S on my arm trying to tell you, like, I actually, not paying child support is some kind of art, actually, because you are artistically ducking your children. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom by proxy incorporate elements from the biggest games of the last 15 years. Skyrim, Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, all these titles are building off of something. Some are more original than others, but they all make each other better. I guess that's why the comparisons are so fun for people. This game does this, but that game does that. I want to see how Kingdom influences games or just stuff in the future. I want to see its lasting impact. And it might not have any. The yearly release schedule has really started to crumble throughout the past few years. It was getting hard to remember that modern AAA video games used to lead the way for the medium, as they felt so much more like a product recently. Now, this sounds dumb. Yeah, of course, they were going to be a product. They always have been. They gotta make money. But it feels especially so as of late, and it sucks. And in some cases, many of these games want you to just put on the apron and clock the fuck in. This is a 9 to 5 now, bitch. Go bake some bread. But Kingdom will probably be looked at here forward and brought up when every other open world game comes out for a while, and we get to see the physics and mechanics they don't have. Major companies have been trying to chase dollar signs and grind trends into the dirt for years. And also for some time, they've just been constantly putting themselves in a position where if the next game bombs, studios go out of business. No wonder most games feel like products. The bubble is bursting, and we're seeing this in TV and film as well. Indie games have been pulling that weight, leading the way consistently for years with marginally smaller budgets and staff. But Kingdom is a reminder of how great this big budget shit can actually be, how creative it is. Tears of the Kingdom is not the only good, modern, big game to come in a long time. It just feels important. Zelda has always featured silly little bugs. And if I'm to dress up as the main guy, I best sit outside with him. The concept of time and change for Zelda games is such low-hanging fruit, especially for a video essay. I'm sitting outside, the wind is blowing. You deserve so much more than just, hey, growing up is kind of hard for a review this indulgent. Tears of the Kingdom, much like Breath of the Wild, reaffirms the beauty of the mundane, the boring, the ordinary. Just a greater appreciation for the outside. Like, look at this fire. This fire's way too cool for me to complain about anything today. I've taken about an hour of your time. That's a lot to ask of someone. You could have listened to Eeny Meeny quite a few times by this point. Arguably a better use of your time. I appreciate that. I would have taken away a completely different message if I had played this game 6 years ago. It came at a time where I'm jaded with my job, jaded with my routine, looking at what tomorrow will offer, instead of looking at what today has to offer too. I've rushed and crunched in areas of my life to get to something greater later. just to get a better life. You want the better car. You want to stop worrying about bills this month. But while you're doing that, don't miss the trees in your yard. Or I am, rather. I am. I'm missing the trees in my yard. I need to appreciate it before I can't anymore. These thoughts are beyond the game's direct intentions. Tears of the Kingdom didn't plan this. It couldn't have. Most of my takeaways surrounding Tears of the Kingdom are outside of the actual game itself. I guess the big takeaway from this video should be art is bigger than itself. How can something that is without question such an anti-bare necessity feel so sacred it warrants no review? There is no piece of writing I could ever make that could sum up this work. This is the biggest thing I've ever worked on, and it still doesn't matter what I have to say. If you ask anybody what their favorite game is, they'll tell you, and then they'll also tell you where they were and what they were doing at that time. I think that's pretty neat. Tears of the Kingdom is no doubt a sequel. Some of this stuff has already been done. The impact simply isn't there like it was for Breath of the Wild. But that's okay. Tears of the Kingdom's greatest success is stealing from itself in Breath of the Wild and doubling down on its original intentions. I spent late nights, way into 4 a.m., working on videos to get them out on time the following day for some dumb deadline I made because I said so. What makes you stick out from the herd other than saying something all the time? Most of my time on the internet has only ever been saying something all the time. Working into the night to be heard just for the sake of it. Hard work, sure. But hard, misplaced work. I also did this the night before Tears of the Kingdom's release. Well past midnight. I exported the final 2, last edit, maybe final cut, .mp4 render file of some finished video. I told my girlfriend I was heading out before bed to buy a copy so I wouldn't have to in the morning. My local GameStop had their own midnight release at 11 p.m. and I missed out on a cool sleeve I could have worn for this very video. Instead, I had to do this whole cool-ass business that I've had to draw on 6 times now. I was late, and they were closed. So I ended up going to Target the following morning, and the rest is history, as told through this script. Since Tears of the Kingdom's release on May 12th, 2023, I have spent no sleepless nights writing and editing for videos. That very urgency I had didn't make those videos any better. And it doesn't make your video worth watching because you lost some sleep. Breath of the Wild was the last dirtbag child routine of my final summer vacation. Before going full-time at the job, dealing with real problems now, and eventually moving out. Breath of the Wild structurally and philosophically stood for going out on your own now. Something I'd soon be doing myself. But I got it all wrong then, I think. Breath of the Wild was telling me to grow up. Tears of the Kingdom is telling me, stop trying to. So hard. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. That's all she wrote. That's the end of the video. But if you want to stick around I won't stop you. I was thinking maybe we could do a bit of a director's commentary. This mic's not plugged in, I'm lying to you. If you are a regular of the 850 subscribers I have before the uploading of this video, you might have noticed I have a Patreon now. That's pretty cool. And to everyone else, I have a Patreon now. That sucks. That doesn't sound cool. I want to make the Patreon exciting and riveting, but I also don't want to sell it on you before you sign up. Like, I just want you to sign up because you want to, and then, hey, whoa, there's maybe fun things behind that locked door that only real fans have access to.
There is a glitch in the Matrix. The world is feeding you lies.
I am speaking this part into a microphone and just pasting it on top of the outside footage because I do not feel like going outside, so I will tell another fib. I just got a few more things to say, I guess. I knew this project was going to take a long time, and that's probably a pretty good reason to never make a video on anything relatively topical, because I am so late to the game, dude. Like, there was no circumstance where I make this video over a year after the game comes out and I'm explaining to you in great detail what a shrine is. I'm not doing that. So I wanted to keep the technicals and the definitions of the game down to a minimum. I'm trying to keep it dumb, okay? I mean, I'm in the editing bay right now, solving formulas, doing equations, and looking back over this entire video, my least favorite part is the beginning where I am a little bit heavy on the, okay, so this is Link, and I hate that because I trust that you already know what that is. And I feel like I can never be that guy that just is the analysis guy. I don't have that skill. I'm so much happier with the second half of the video where I kind of weave outside of Tears of the Kingdom for a minute and then come back in. Those are always my favorite videos. The Tears of the Kingdom video was edited in 3/3 because I knew I could not fit this entire project on a single timeline. This entire video also wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for my good friend Nick. Actually, the buddy in the video who I was talking about, I was playing Breath of the Wild with 6 years ago, and we were like kind of playing off of each other on the things we did. That's my friend Nick, so special thanks to him. He basically gave me this computer rig. This video would not have been possible on my previous PC and also previous versions of Vegas Pro. For all my video editing heads out there, Vegas Pro sucks. It is not fun. It's not fun. It's so funny. I made this like grand statement in the video of like, since Tears of the Kingdom's release, I've spent no sleepless nights writing and editing for It's so bullshit. Near the tail end of this video, I was staying up a little bit. I wanted to get it done. It was hard. I'm just a tortured artist. What do you want? I started work on this video on Vegas Pro 19 and was thankfully able to edit the video. Not smoothly, but at least edit the video. But when the time came to render those 3/3 down into their own individual videos, my progress bar kept freezing. It almost seemed like the video just wasn't going to be possible. There's too many layers, just so much going on, you know? I just think a lot. So I come to find out that Vegas Pro has their own monthly subscription service that gives you the latest version of Vegas Pro, which as of this video is Vegas Pro 21. So I was able to kind of hop into 21, do some slicker editing, and also get those videos finally rendered down, hopefully in higher quality. Because since the video was in 3/3, I have to render the video twice. I don't want to sacrifice quality. I shot so much in 4K, unfortunately variable frame rates, which bad move, don't do that. It makes life a living hell. I'm gonna make a pivot here real quick and go back to that segment of the video where I'm talking about things I'm influenced by and things I like. Being that this video is, about a tight 90, it's a feature full length, no big deal, director. This shit was so hard. Like, I've made so many video essays that are like 7 to 10 minutes. Like, man, I'm pooped. That was a hard video. Spending this much time with yourself allows you to overanalyze. Okay, that joke sucks. You've never been funny. No, nothing you've ever said has been funny. You're a bad writer, your voice is annoying, and these are problems I'm hoping to mitigate by just research and learning, but also your subscriptions on the Patreon. I do want to invest in better equipment. I want to make dope vids. But anyway, sorry about the detour. The segment where I'm talking about things I'm influenced by, I noticed I listed one book, which was Their Eyes Were Watching God, a huge influence on me in high school. I just noticed that most of the things that deeply influenced me in my youth were either video games, music, or television. Something that was sorely missed from that segment, despite talking about it at length for a little bit, is the profound influence a lot of YouTubers and creators have on me, not just the ones I listed in the video. Oh, it's starting to rain. This is where I'm just gonna get philosophical now. I had finished writing the script and started work on editing, and then I saw Tim Rogers' review of Boku no Natsuyasumi, and I thought, I'm dog shit at this. So if not the style of writing and jokes or whatever, Tim Rogers at least had his handprint on the editing style of this video for sure. And if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It's really good. You should absolutely see that video before you ever see this one. And that's a bit more literal influence, but I'd also like to talk about some people who have maybe had a subconscious influence, like people you might not expect, but they still matter to me. FT Signifier, just one of the best channels ever, just period. He's like, damn. That's the type of dude that makes you think like, oh, nothing I make matters. My friend, Big Boss Salvo, is a really great guy. He makes good videos, and I actually needed, when you're working alone on a video and you just hear your own thoughts, you go insane. So of course you gotta talk to the focus group. You talk to your Big Boss Salvo. You go, hey, how's this script, man? And he says, not dog shit. And you're like, okay, cool. Maybe it'll work out. Kyle Bosman's really great. Delayed input. Just that's the perfect amount of effort to having a show that you recognize doesn't matter. It just feels human. Like he's just dry and funny, and just a really great channel. Check him out too. I think I've rambled long enough. All I can say is work has begun on the next few of whatever this is. I just know I want to make longer reviews. I just want to talk longer about things, and I'm gonna keep it dumb. I'm not making anything smart. I might have a mission statement or some sort of channel description on Patreon, so go check that out to get a better feel on what I mean. But that's all I got. Thanks for if you made it this far, if you watched all this, thanks.